So, have you ever made love and felt one with the universe? Have you ever made love and felt expanded sense of self? Loss of distinction between you and your beloved, you and the cosmos. You might have felt that the whole cosmos is within your womb. The stars are being shot into your womb with the semen of a man, or you might feel that a man, as that you are actually shooting the stars into the cosmic womb. And anyone knows about those feelings? Yeah, some of you do. Yeah, okay, good. I will come back to that later. To the mystery of sexuality. But I want to start from the fact that we, as human beings, are creatures that by definition have to create meaning to what we perceive from our senses. That's just the way our mechanism works. We are animals that in order to function in the world, we perceive data from senses, what we see, what we hear, what we feel, what we smell, what we taste, and we try to make sense of that, and we create a picture of reality. That all animals do that. We create a picture of reality, and this picture we give it meaning. By being humans, we even give it verbal meanings. We say, this is a tent, this is a pole, this is sky, rock, cliff, danger. That's how our brain works. We map reality and we create meaning. Now the interesting thing, and also the tricky thing, is that we believe this meaning. We believe this meaning to be reality itself. While it's not reality, it's only a story, so to say, a story that we created for us to navigate within reality. Actually, modern sciences claim that everything that we perceive as the world is not more than the interface on your computer. Interface system between the user and the computer. Like you don't interact with the file itself. You know, the file is 00110011, all this. We have nothing to do with that. It's not even that. It's positive and negative tension in that's the file. We interact with an icon. We interact with symbols on our screen that make sense to us. Now, modern science says, well, maybe everything that we see is actually like that. We are interacting with an interface system between us and reality. We're not interacting with reality. You see a person, it's not a person. It's something that created an icon, 3D icon. Yes, it's 3D, it has smells, it has touch. It's a complicated icon, but it's an icon on your computer screen, which is inside your brain, that allows you to interact with that. That's radical. But one of the things that they saw when they created this understanding or hypothesis is, we have people here from Australia, right? Who is here from Australia? Yeah, several people are from Australia. Great. So, in Australia, there is a specific bug, a beetle actually. It's a beetle, brown beetle, that what they saw is that the population of this beetle disappears. Slowly disappears. And it's like, why? What the fuck? What's happening? And then they realized, they looked what's happening, and they saw that Aussies are drinking beer and some of them leave their beer bottles in nature. Could you believe? The male of this beetle could not find the difference between a female and a beer bottle. That happens to men as well sometimes. And the males of this beetle are going and putting their sperm in open beer bottles in nature. So the fucking beer bottles, Aussie beetles, instead of their females, and thus the population of this beetle disappears. So it was like, what the fuck? What happens to this? Why? I mean, there is a difference. Actually, we see very clearly that this is a female beetle and this is a beer bottle. But apparently, the interface mechanism within the male beetle doesn't have the ability to distinguish between the two. He sees it completely the same. So it confuses him. His brain is not made to find the difference between this and that. So then they thought, like, what are the flaws like that in our brain? What is it that we can't actually make the difference between? Or that we might even not see? I mean, we know that there are certain animals that see infrared. Mosquitoes, for instance. Snakes. Some animals, like the bees, some of the bees see ultraviolet. For instance, they see the world, their picture of reality is completely different than ours. Bats, if you were here at night, there are some bats sometimes running after mosquitoes. They hear the space and fly so fast, so you can actually catch a fucking mosquito. It's hard to kill a mosquito like this, for us, like this, but they know how to fly and catch it just by hearing the sonar. Their picture of reality is very different than ours. But still, we are so convinced that what we see is reality. What we see is not reality. What we see and feel is a meaning, a story that we give to reality. And we believe that our story is true. We honestly believe that this is reality. Only this is enough to sometimes shake our perception of, like, fuck, so what is reality? What is reality? If all that I can relate to is my story. Do I have any approach to reality itself? So the question of do we have approach to reality itself is ancient in philosophy. And usually the answer is unfortunately not. We don't have approach to reality itself. We only have reflections and data coming from reality to our senses. But what we can do is doubt the way that we create the story from the data. And this is quite difficult. Artists do it a lot. So when you tell a person, can you draw a tree? They would just usually take brown color and make the bark, and take green color and make the leaves. That's all, like a simple thing. But if you actually look at the fucking tree, it's not brown and green. And that's what artists do. They look at the tree, they actually look. Did you ever took some minutes to actually look at a tree, at the colors? What colors would you find in the bark, for instance? You'll find, yeah, there's some brown, but you will find silver and gray. Sometimes a little bit of purple can be there. Orange. Sometimes a little even red, green for sure, sometimes. There's all kind of colors in what we say, like, oh, this is brown because this is the bark of a tree. Look at the leaves. So many shades of green actually are there, but not only green. There's silver, there's brown, there's yellow. Sometimes if you look, you'll see blue, if you actually look. But we don't look. We don't look because we made a classification. We categorized it as tree. And our brain says, tree, I know what tree is, I don't need to pay attention. So when you're an artist, you actually pay attention. You actually sit with whatever you paint. Whatever you paint, whether it's a tree or a stone or a person, you actually sit with it and you actually see what's there. Let's be curious. You start to open the curiosity. Then you see things that you haven't seen before. Just sit with any item in the world. Sit with it 5 minutes and open your senses. And you will see colors and shapes and things that you haven't seen before. And that's very simple because we have in our brain, and brain science knows that today, we have parts in our brain that are actually, their mission is to categorize and classify and put it aside. The reason is to have our awareness have enough, it's like RAM in the computer. You know, it's like you have enough memory to process what's needed. You don't need to process it again and come to the decision that this is a tree. You know, it actually saves a lot of time when you can actually say, tree, stone, tiger, run. Okay? But if you're sitting there, it's like, wow. Yeah, you might end up as dinner of the tiger, or you might end up as a friend of the tiger, who knows? But the brain says, I need to classify and I need to know in advance and not waste energy on things that I actually know. Anyone took LSD here? No? Yeah, you can say, yeah, thank you. So, did you have this experience of looking at something? It doesn't actually matter what it is. But let's say a flower. After you took LSD or many substances that expand consciousness, and then you all of a sudden it's like, wow. It doesn't need to be a flower. It can be the handle of your door, or something very banal. Your pencil. You wanted to paint. And actually you just look at the pencil for half an hour. Ooh. Wow. And all of a sudden you see things that you haven't seen before. Because one of the things that those substances do is turn off that part of the mechanism of the brain that says, been there, done that, I know what it is. It's a pencil. So when you turn it off by substances, all of a sudden you become curious like a child, and that's what children do. They go with big eyes at the world and they're curious and they're learning what is it? What is it? But as adults we just classify it and we know what it is. And of course we don't know what, we have a story. We have a story and we believe that we move in reality, but we don't move in reality, we move in our story. So how do we get a little bit of ability to expand our perception? So one is curiosity. Yeah, become more curious about what you think that you see and you know. It can be your partner. That happens. It's one of the things that happens in marriages. At the beginning, when we fall in love with someone, we're so excited about them. We're so curious. Who are you? Who are you? You're so beautiful. You're so amazing. Anything that you'll say, I want to listen. I want to look at your body, at this part of your body. And then you become partners for some time, and maybe you marry each other, and then you don't see them anymore. Literally, you don't see them. They can change their hair color, and you didn't even notice. Because she walks in the door and your brain says, my wife. And the brain says, I know her. I know who she is. Been there, done that. Don't need to take any more energy So one of the things that can really change our life is question everything that we see, and especially our partners and children. We all probably have this memory, being a child actually, and that people put us in a box, and we grew already. We changed, we grew. But for those people, usually they're adults, they relate to us as I was a year ago, or 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and they don't get me now because I'm the same in their brain. Yeah, you remember that as children? Or this is like frustrating sometimes. So what can we do to open our perception, to take more of reality into the way that we make our story? So yes, one of them is use substances that can expand our consciousness. But the good news is that one of the substances that expand our consciousness the most is our own sexuality. Sexuality is the hormones and the chemicals that run in our body when we are aroused are actually consciousness expanding substances. That's why many of you waved your hand when I asked, do you know of this experience of feeling one with the universe or anything like that? You have mystical experiences when you were highly aroused and making love and losing this feeling of self because you went into trance. And one of the best ways to go into deep trance is actually to go deep into the magic of sexuality, of love. But let's go back to the way that we perceive reality. In Hasidut, I come from my traditional training as a rabbi was in the Hasidic tradition of Jewish tradition, which is one of the most beautiful, brilliant, mystical traditions. And one of the things they say there is joy and happiness should not only be a result of events, but actually should be used as a tool to change the events. You see, most of the times we're happy because something happened. Something happened that we think it's good. Again, that's all our perception. We think it's good. You might, I didn't lose the plane. Thank God I didn't lose the plane. Boom. So you think it's good and you're happy, but who knows, right? But so usually we are happy because something that we wanted happened. But the Hasidic masters said, try to be happy regardless. Can you actually be happy as a way to change reality? They took the verse from the Bible, I'll say it in Hebrew, Ki besimcha tetzeu. With joy you will exit, you will go out, you will leave. It's actually speaking about leaving the house of slavery. In joy you will leave, but they say besimcha tetzeu mikol hatzarot. By joy you will leave all your slavery, everything that you're addicted to, everything that limits you. By using joy, not with joy. In Hebrew you can use the letter be in two meanings. One is with this feeling, besimcha, but also besimcha is like with this, use this, like you use a hammer to hammer a nail. So using joy as means to take yourself out of any trouble. And then they would say, like, make yourself happy. Artificially, it's like yoga, laughter yoga. Like, make yourself happy, regardless. Nothing needs to make you happy. Make yourself happy. And then all of a sudden, you will see data that you didn't pay attention to before. You will see opportunities that you disregarded before. You will see things, you will feel things that were not available for you before. Again, laughter is another way of having a trance. But laughter and joy are expanding our awareness. So that's one of the really traditional Hasidic ways of using joy as expanding what we see as reality, so we actually can choose a way that was before just blocked to us. But I want to go deeper into the confusion of modern science. All that we receive from reality has to do with less than 5% of what exists in the cosmos. Everything that we see, feel, smell, can measure is made of atoms. Matter is made of atoms. And energy that we can measure, that we can feel as heat, as light. Everything in the cosmos, all the stars, all the galaxies, including, of course, this beautiful planet Earth, everything, my body, your body, the sun, the Dead Sea, the birds, the fox, everything is less than 5% of what existing right now in the cosmos. Here, one should say, here, not anywhere else. Because most of what exists in the cosmos, they call it dark energy and dark matter. So it's like approximately 68% is dark energy, and approximately 26.8, if I remember, percent is dark matter. Less than 5%, 4 point something, 4.8 something is matter that we can relate to. So actually the matter, everything that is material is abnormal. It's not the normal in reality. It's the abnormal. Everything that we base our perception on, which is everything that we feel, smell, touch, see, hear, is the abnormal. I mean, imagine anything that you would say, I base my assumption on something that happens only like less than 5% of the time. So, which means 95% of the time it doesn't happen, or there's something else. And it's like, are you crazy? You're crazy basing your assumptions of something that is only 5%. You're not normal. You're crazy, you're out of your mind, but this is what we have. We only are aware of less than 5% of reality. All the rest is dark, meaning it's not dark like Dark Vader, or, it's not dark in the sense of any evil, or it's dark because it's not reflecting light. It's not producing light, it's not reflecting light. It can't be measured in any device, So you can say, how do we know that it exists? If we can't measure it, how do we know that it exists? So dark matter and dark energy both leave traces. They leave evidence that they exist. But we can't measure, we can't see them directly. I'll say it because we're not in science class, and I'm not a scientist, of course, but just a curious person. The amount of energy that is needed for the galaxies to fly in the universe in the speed that they do, all the energy that exists that we know of is not enough. So if they calculate back how much energy is needed, they find there is 68% more needed, called dark energy. What is this energy? Where is it? How is it? We don't know. We know nothing. Again, the galaxies are spinning. We are living on once we think about it, we're in an amusement park here. We're on a planet that is spinning around its axis. Quite fast, if you think about it. Mm-hmm. And then, in the meantime, we're spinning around, all this is orbiting around the sun. Quite fast, moving in space, in empty space. But the sun itself is part of this arm of the galaxy, and the whole galaxy is spinning around itself. So all this, the sun with us orbiting, with the spinning of it's also in constant, big, quick, fast movement. So fast that we would have left the galaxy. Like, like you do this, and the amount of the speed that we are moving in, the galaxies would spread from the speed. In order not to fly away, you can calculate how much mass you need to have the gravitation. And again, we need more mass than we know that exists. This is the 26-point-something% more that's called dark matter. That probably is existing here, but we don't see it. Now, there are many, many, many assumptions from science fiction to pure science of what is dark matter and dark energy. It's crazy. It's like it's 95-point-something% of reality, and we know nothing about it. What is it? What could be there? And it's affecting us. It's affecting us right now. It's holding us in place. I mean, all our atoms, everything would blow away. It's affecting us right now. What is it? So I want to bring a question to that. I want to, from here we start to, ask interesting questions, or questions that are interesting me. I'm just sharing with you questions or possibilities that for me, I find myself curious about them. Could it be that dark matter contains the infinite possibilities of parallel realities that exist not specifically as full reality, but as a potential reality behind this reality? The other theories in science today speak about multi-dimensional world and infinite parallel universes. Basically, any choice that you make, and not only you as a person, but any choice that is made in the universe, we don't choose, both happen. You choose whether to go to the ISTA festival or to go to something else that's happening. In this reality, you go into only one of them. You're here in the ISTA festival, but in another reality, you actually went to visit your old aunt who's sick. And in this reality, you decided not to go visit her. In another reality, you are there. Everything that you did, you married this person. In another reality, you didn't. Everything exists actually in some other parallel universe, some parallel dimension. It exists. Where? Could it be that it's stored? It is stored as some level of unfolding data behind this reality. That what we do actually by choosing is like choosing cards. Imagine a deck of cards that you have in your hands. You have 100 cards in your hands. And you shuffle the cards and you choose a card. And you put it on top of the whole deck. So from one perspective, you can say there is only one card here. You actually don't see the depth of the other 100 cards that you could actually choose. You could actually choose. You might have chosen them, but you didn't. But they exist just behind. They're stored just behind. Could it be that any choice that we make, we're actually just picking a card? Picking a card from reality. But the rest of the cards are actually here. They're here. Stored behind. I love to look at it in my own mind as the tail of the peacock of reality. Imagine reality is a big peacock. And we are just in one feather. Everything that you see is one feather. Because the peacock doesn't spread its tail. Because it doesn't spread its tail, we live in a tale, in a story that is very narrow. But would God, reality, existence, Again, in Kabbalistic Hebrew, existence and God is the same word, Havaya. That's how we use in mystical language to call the divine, Havaya, which means existence. Existence can spread its tail. Can we tickle this peacock somehow? And or I don't know if tickling will work, but when he will see a female, can we arouse him? Can we arouse the peacock of reality to spread its tail so we can actually start to be aware of the infinite possibilities that are in front of us just now and that I'm picking a card consciously? So can we actually navigate through reality consciously, knowing that infinite possibilities are here in front of us? And wherever we pick them and we create the story around this data, but there's tons of data available. Now, right now. Like if we could really choose a different feather, you could be, transporting yourself from now, poof, you disappear and you're in a different feather, you're in a different story of reality, completely different reality. But this, of course, we can't, because it's too much basically I think it's too much for our mind to believe it. But maybe we can actually choose the next feather. Each time, just the next feather is available. The next feather is something that you believe is possible. With your mind, you believe it's possible. So when I think I'm gonna lose my plane, if I would think that you can tell that I'm traveling a lot, so this is a lot in my mind. Losing the plane, not losing the plane. So if I'm thinking I might lose the plane, a parallel story that they will actually make a private jet for me, and they say, don't bother, Mr. Zrahi, we have a private jet for you. That doesn't seem yet so realistic. It will take some time. But so when I'm kind of running through the terminal, I wouldn't think of that, but I do feel like it's possible that there is a little delay. But there is a delay. Maybe there is a delay. That's possible. It's for me, for my mind, for the way I make the story. It's possible. That's the next feather. That's the next feather, not 10th feather, not 10 feathers away. The next feather is something that I believe it's possible, and I can consciously start to navigate my consciousness to this, to create, to be a part of this reality. Now, all inside of us, there is the one that doesn't believe things happen. The pessimist inside of us is like, no, you're going to lose your plane, you're going to lose money, you're going to be late for this whatever conference you're in, or whatever it is. That also plays part in the way we navigate through the peacock's tail. So it's an inner work of really allowing God to surprise us. Allowing reality to surprise us is a big inner work I found with myself. To surprise us in a good way. Like to really trust reality that it's conspiring for the best. Like one time, Dawn and I, my wife and I, we missed the plane to Hawaii. Actually missed it, and it was like, they closed the gate. And we were so almost bummed, but then she's like, so what's the other possibilities? And she looked and she said, I can actually put you on a direct flight, and believe it or not, you're actually going to arrive an hour earlier. So that was we were late in order to come earlier. Yeah? But it's possible. No extra fees. Actually happened. But to believe that reality can play this way, that you can play with reality this way, this is where choosing joy as a tool, as the Hasidic masters said, choosing joy as a tool comes handy. Because if we narrow ourselves with this feeling of like everything is bad, if it's not, that's not going to work, it's not gonna, what happens is that our perception is getting narrow. That's all. And when our perception is getting narrower, the availability of different realities, different feathers is getting narrower. The peacock is closing its tail. And we are locked in a narrow story. This is a way that our brains created a meaning for some data that we collect. This is not reality itself. This is a story about reality. But we believe the story so badly, because this is for us reality, that we start to fight about it. That's what happens with all religious wars. We make a story, we call this thing God, this is our belief, you believe in a different way because you created the story a little differently. Then my story becomes my reality. I'm oblivion to the fact that the story is not reality, and I start to fight with your story, with the way that you connected the dots. Because all that we do is we connect the dots. Remember those games of connecting dots? I love doing it many times, just like to train my mind. I sometimes tell people around me, my beloveds, just make it, whatever, dots, lines on the paper. And then I look at it and try to connect the dots. It's kind of making a story. Try doing it. It's really training your mind to connect the dots in a different way. Now imagine also dots that obviously make a duck. Remember those, like dots, dot, dot, and you can see that it's a duck. Try to connect them in a different way. Take the dots of a duck and don't create a duck. Do something else, be creative. It's really a beautiful training for the brain, for consciousness, to see like, yes, there are dots. I can see that the common thought would go to create a duck, but I dock this and I decide to create something else. And do this not only with a paper and dots. Can we do this with everything that we see? Everything. Constantly questioning and allowing ourselves to expand. So I want to go now a speck deeper. Another paradox that is known in quantum physics, very popular, is the paradox of wave and particle. So this paradox says that everything in the subatomic level is both particle and wave. And particle and wave behave completely different. They have completely different identity, like so to say, philosophy of life. Particle goes in straight ways, like laser beam. Particle goes straight like a ball and hits something and either breaks it or bounces back.
חלקיק.
Wave? Got it. Thank you for asking. So, a particle, חלקיק in Hebrew, goes straight ways and hits something, bounces back. A wave doesn't do that. A wave, first of all, doesn't go one direction. If you make a wave in your pool or in your bathtub, it goes like a wave. It makes like rounds. It makes circles. Waves goes in circles to all directions. It doesn't go in one direction. If it hits an obstacle, like it will hit this palm tree, what would it do? Like if I throw a ping pong ball and I don't miss it, it will bounce back. But if I make a wave, it will spread around it, bypass it, and shortly after, the waves will connect behind and recreate the wave pattern. So there are many things to say about that, but Here's my take on that. Here's my Kabbalistic take on the particle wave paradox of reality. This is what in Kabbalah and many mystical traditions is related as the feminine, masculine nature of reality. In Kabbalah, actually, the way they spoke about it is the words that they chose to speak about it is circles and lines, almost like particle and waves. 16th century, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, the greatest Kabbalist, lived in Tzfat. When he relates to reality, he says reality has both, in every part of reality, it has an existence that is, everything is round about it, everything is circular, it was created in a circular way, it reflects in a circular way, and there is a whole different system that is linear. Or in Hebrew, in his Hebrew, it's ancient Hebrew, he says, Igulim v'yosher, this is the terminology. Igulim is also our Hebrew today, circles, rounds. Yosher, today we call it integrity, which is beautiful. But in ancient word, it's for linearity. Things that are linear, yashar. And he already relates to that as a more feminine aspect of reality and a more masculine aspect of reality. Who is who? It's clear to us, right? The feminine is the more round. Feminine is round, feminine has curves, it's like the female body. It's like anything that we relate with the feminine. Also in psychology, the psychology of more feminine beings is less target-oriented missile. This is more linear and more masculine. So the masculine mind is more of like, I have a mission, I go there, in the least, at least energy that I can put in that, the best. I go straight lines. Do, done, come back. Feminine ways of relating to reality is I go around and things happen in the way. And yes, I had a mission, but there is a wounded cat on the way, and there's my friend, and she invites me here, and she invites me there, whatever. And we all laugh because it's beautiful. Because we love, actually the target-oriented, mission-oriented mind is boring, fucking boring. It gets things done, but it's boring. It's like imagine the world with only masculine consciousness. You don't want to live in this. Feminine consciousness, on the contrary, is, we just laughed. Why did we laugh? Because it's sweet, it adds color, it adds the unpredictable behavior that we wouldn't think that it's like, why would you do that? But it's beautiful. I have to admit, it's beautiful. So the feminine, the round, the circular, when I say feminine, don't speak about female or male. Speak about the nature of reality. That's what the ancient Kabbalists said. Every point in reality has both igulim v'yosher, circles and lines. Every point. It's like what, and that's what I want to relate back to quantum physics today. This is waves and particles. Every freaking atom, electron, is both wave and particle, even though they react completely different. That's why it's a paradox. So in laboratories, what they did, how they know it, because, and that's why it's so confusing. If you set it up to measure it as a particle, it will react as particle. If you set it up to measure it as a wave, it will react as a fucking wave. It's like, so who are you, Mr. Matter, before I measure you? They call it superposition. Matter is in superposition before you measure it, and measuring is the interfering of human consciousness, of the watcher, in the process. Before consciousness comes into the picture, matter is what they call in superposition. It's both. You can even say it exists and doesn't exist at the same time. And in ancient Kabbalah, and this is like really, really ancient, not 16th century, but the most ancient we know actually is Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Creation. And the Book of Creation already says dimensions. There is a 6-dimensional world that we know, and there is another dimension, which is called nefesh, soul, psyche, consciousness. It's another dimension. It's mentioned in ancient mysticism that as another dimension, they call it in the ancient world, it's olam, which means space, shana, which means like Rosh Hashanah, you're in the beginning of the year, it's time dimension. There's space, there's time, and nefesh, consciousness, psyche. The three of them, Olam, Shana, Nefesh, are the dimensions of reality according to ancient Kabbalistic wisdom. Together, this is the ancient Kabbalistic wisdom was very connected to earth. The first letters of Olam, Shana, Nefesh, Hebrew speakers, make Ashan. This is smoke, Ashan. This is the secret of smoke when they say that God's revelation in Mount Sinai was the mountain became all smoky, Har Sinai Ashan Kulo, it all became all smoky. They say that's the meaning, that the wisdom comes, it's not only smoke, it's like the secret of smokes, that is that reality is 3 dimensions of Olam, of cosmos, time dimension, Shana, and Nefesh, and consciousness. They all need to become together. But what level of consciousness do we bring to interact with reality? This is where, in my mind, expanding consciousness need to be taken in consideration. And for me, the most beautiful way of expanding consciousness is by the inner drugs, so to say, that we have in our body, which is eros, which is expanding consciousness by sexual arousal. Going into trance without actually needing to take any substance, because you have it all. You just need to learn how to evoke it. And guess what? Religions told you this is forbidden, or it's not nice. But nature didn't think so. Actually, reality didn't think so. It made you by that. We are life, and we are life because we are orgasmic. We are sexual. Can life, organisms, interact with quantum physics, quantum reality, in a way that we never actually thought about, because all we thought about was coming from scientists in laboratories with suits and ties or whatever it is. Can there be a different way that we actually interact? Really, really lately, in the late, 2 years, they come with the facts that surprise science, that actually proteins, our body, proteins, molecules of protein actually also function in quantum physics reality. That's completely new in science, but here in Israel, in the Weizmann Institute, there's several researchers that show that actually life itself is connected. It's not about measuring dead material, but life, the way that life is being created, is connected to the mysteries of the paradox of quantum reality. In the depth of the way that protein molecules actually work. I will not go into details, it's fascinating. But it points to the fact that maybe the origin of life is connected to that. The way that matter became alive. This is another completely puzzling riddle, right? How did matter become alive? Maybe it interacts with everything that we don't know anything about, the dark matter and the dark energy, with what we call nothingness, doesn't exist, emptiness. All the 99.9% of what is in an atom that we don't see and we relate to it as vacuum, it's not empty, it's full of something that we don't know, and there are subatomic particles that goes from nothingness to somethingness, nothingness to somethingness, and when they come to somethingness, they're also masculine and feminine, or in the way we relate to it in sacred sexuality and Kabbalah as sacred union, what they call superposition of wave and particle, I want to call it sacred union. Reality is in sacred union before you artificially try to push it into separateness. We live in a sacred world, orgasmic, paradoxical world of sacred union of masculine and feminine. But, and this is my last point for this lecture, they ask, what about, so okay, the paradox of a wave and particle is known with subatomic entities, or particles, electrons, photons. What about big things like you and I? Are we also, or we are just like, we're particles? We look like we're particles. We are something. We are not a phenomena of a wave. We're not wave appearing here. We are not frequency. Another way to speak about wave is frequency. We seem like I'm a physical object. I stand here. When I stand here, only a particle can stand here and not be at the same time there. Wave is all over the place. Once it's spreading itself, it's a vibration. Wave is you can calculate how much of it is in every place. So they say that, yes, it relates also to bigger things, but the wavelength becomes so tiny and small that you cannot actually relate to it. It disappears almost from any way that we can measure or relate to it. Great. So now let's take it back to the Kabbalistic foundations. What actually did we say now? That all reality, also you and I, floor, trees, everything is paradoxically feminine and masculine. But the way that we relate to the world, because it's so masculine, we have such a masculine dominating mind, we say the wave, which is the feminine vibration of big objects, is lost. Does it seem familiar? The feminine is lost? Huh? The goddess, the feminine, is lost from our consciousness. She's here, but she's lost from our consciousness. It's unapproachable for us. The wavelength is so small that it becomes almost obsolete. It's mysterious. We can't relate to that. But when you relate to it from mystical perspective, when you relate to it from Kabbalistic perspective, it's like, yes, I know that. We know. We, humanity, we fell into one-sided consciousness, into very masculine, dominating, patriarchal consciousness, and we actually forgot how to see the world in a different, how to feel the world as vibration. We look at items and we say, here is you, here is me. But we forget, we don't really know how to feel reality as vibration. If vibration, that means that our vibration is mixed. It's only the particle that you're sitting on this mattress, he's sitting on that mattress, but the vibration is actually, it's like aquarelle colors. It's like, if we all make sound together, we make waves, and the sounds travel and they mix. We're mixed with each other in the feminine way of reality. And it is here, but it's missing because we do not know how to connect to her. Question mark. Could it be that in order to open the peacock's tail, we need to know how to vibrate hair? That's what the peacock does. When he sees hair, he opens the tail. If we know how to vibrate reality in a level that is so subtle and so mysterious, but there were mystics that spoke about it. One of the mystics, I'm actually writing I wrote this book, Kadesha, about the sacred priestesses in ancient time here in Jerusalem. Information that was banned from monogamous relationship, from monotheistic, also yes, from monotheistic religions, but it's documented. And now writing the second part on this mystic that lived, Jewish mystic, lived in the 18th century. In Judaism, he's known as the bad, evil guy. You know who it is? Anyone? Most people don't even know his name, but religious people know his name as that's almost like Satan himself. Jacob Frank. All they know about him is like he did sacred, or he did orgies, not sacred. He did orgies. He said it's sacred. Fooled his disciples, of course. And he was a false messiah. And dangerous. Don't read anything about him. So of course, I read. Actually, he never wrote anything, but so there's a little archaeology of textology there. It makes me curious, and especially that he did orgies with his fellows. I mean, he converted to Christianity just to arrive from the authority of the rabbis, and he got the wings of the Catholic Church protecting him from the rabbis that were after him, and the Catholic Church gave him a monastery, and he got all his disciples in the monastery. And what did he do? Orgies under the wings of the sacred Catholic Church and more. But if you look at actually his theology, I want to tell you some things from his unknown theology. Takes me a lot of time to uncode what's actually written there. Even all the academic researchers that are dealing with him, for some reason, relate to him as the bad guy. No one actually just like be curious about this guy. Just be curious. What was there? So one of the things that he says, very consciously and very broadly over many years, he was saying the maiden. That's how he calls the feminine aspect of reality. The true maiden is concealed. No one can see her. She's here, but she was hidden. Instead of her came another female figure that everybody in Christianity relate to her as the Madonna. In Judaism, they relate to her as the Shekhinah. But actually, she's a slave. She's not free. She's enslaved to death. Death is her best lover. And what she does is she seduces people to be so religious. She seduces people to be religious and righteous, to fast, to beat themselves, to have guilt. And they feel that they're coming closer to her. The Jews, they become close to the Shekhinah. Christians, they become close to the Madonna because they become so religious. But by that, she's sucking life force away from them until they become so dead that she gives them as offering to her beloved, death. It's a strong image, huh? He said, being religious is the most contagious seduction because you actually think that you're coming closer to God. Honestly, you become only closer to death. God is the life force of existence. And in order to if you approach God, he said, you would never need to die. And in order to do that, you need to first come to the maiden. You need to be aware of the maiden. But your mind is so blind that you can't actually do that. So he was trying to bring his disciples. He said, like it's almost like it's really a mission impossible. Should you choose to accept, would you follow me? I will show you the maiden. But beware, because all the false maidens of religions will try to seduce you that you become a sinner. But if you follow me, come with me to the sacred orgies. Because only there, with the secret of sexuality, you start to vibrate feminine energy. After you go through your fucking mind of projections and desires that are just repressed for all your life. So he said, like, okay, you need to clear all the repressed desires. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that. But I want you to come to the vibration of sacred sexuality. Of course they made him the evil guy. Of course they told you, don't read these books. But it exists. He lived in Poland, could you believe? Anyway, I want to finish this and come to some last point questions. Could it be that we can actually go beyond the false maiden? Can we go beyond righteousness and guilt and blame and start to vibrate our sacred sexuality inside in a way that we become so ecstatic that we actually feel that we can hold the vibration of wave and particle together, that we start to be aware of the maiden herself, of the existence of this reality in a paradoxical way. We don't need to push reality to be either or, but we can hold it in the mystery of paradox and vibrate that as you are sometimes in mystical experiences and orgasm. But can we actually function from this place and actually make our choices across the peacock tail and really navigate in a more smart way through reality, which is so different from what we learned in high school that reality is. There's more unknown than known. There's more paradox than straight mind. And the straight, logical, patriarchal mind is so confused today. Can we start to vibrate in a different way? So we find our way back to the garden. In Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs, it says in Hebrew, Gan na'ul achoti kala, gan na'ul ma'ayan chatum. A locked, concealed garden is my beloved maiden. A locked garden, a sealed spring. Interesting, if you actually look at the text, it doesn't say that. They fix it, but like what's in Hebrew is like it's written one way and read it in a different way. Ktiv and Kri. It actually says Gan na'ul achoti kala, gal na'ul ma'ayan chatum. That's how it's written. A locked garden is my beloved maiden. A concealed wave. In Hebrew, wave is gal, garden is gan. So they said, read gan, read garden. But it actually says, go open the Bible, Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs. It says, my beloved is a locked garden, a hidden or sealed wave. I think it actually is a beautiful pointing finger towards the wave, the vibrational aspect of this reality, the feminine aspect of existence itself that is so concealed and so hidden from our consciousness. And may we open to her again and start to connect the dots completely different. Create our reality, our story, our interface with reality from a completely different place. And may we bring another generation or other generations to this planet that will not be locked into the linear thought only. Amen. and allow the universe to surprise you guys.
Oh,
Yay.
thank you.